Mr. Thompson here. We're looking at United States History Standard 4, which analyzes the ideological, military, social, and diplomatic aspects of the American Revolution. More specifically, we'll look at Part A of that standard, which focuses on the intellectual sources, organization, and argument of the Declaration of Independence, including the role of Thomas Jefferson and the Committee of Five. The Declaration of Independence was the ideological explanation for American independence. Although Thomas Jefferson was the main author of the document, he was just one member on the Committee of Five who was tasked with drafting this statement representing the Continental Congress delegates' decision to seek independence from Britain. Richard Henry Lee, a delegate to the Continental Congress from Virginia, proposed in June of 1776 that the colonies should be free and independent. The full Congress voted in favor of the break from British control on July 2nd, 1776, and formally adopted the Declaration of Independence 2 days later on July 4th, 1776. The document had been under construction since early June. Tension had escalated in Boston between the Patriots and the British who occupied the city throughout 1776. Frenzied support for Thomas Paine's common sense also helped enliven the American patriots. By June 1776, the Continental Congress recognized they were fast approaching a critical point and designated 5 delegates to write a rationale for independence. The Committee of Five, as they were known, included Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Robert Livingston of New York, and Roger Sherman of Connecticut. Jefferson was known to be a great writer, so the group asked him to write an initial draft of independence. This is like when you're in group work and your group's like, oh man, this guy's great. You should totally make the PowerPoint. You're the best at PowerPoints. After about 2 weeks of hard work, Jefferson presented his initial draft to some of the members on the Committee of Five for review. They made only a few minor adjustments, and then the document was given to the full Continental Congress on June 28, 1776 for consideration. A few sticking points came up that required more revisions to Jefferson's draft. In all, there were 86 changes made by the Continental Congress to Jefferson's draft before it was finally adopted on July 4th, 1776. The major revisions to the document concerned slavery. Some of the delegates from southern colonies refused to sign the document as Jefferson wrote it because it was critical of slavery. Consequently, all references to slavery were cut from the document. Debate continues today on the origins of the ideas contained in the Declaration of Independence. Most scholars hold that the ideas of John Locke's Second Treatise of Government significantly influenced Jefferson's writings. John Locke was a British philosopher who believed that all individuals naturally possess certain rights regardless of status. As part of these natural rights, Locke proposed that people have the right to choose their own form of government and consequently give it power. The social contract theory, subscribed by John Locke and other political thinkers, forms the basis of this argument. The social contract theory is the underlying philosophy justifying colonial independence. In this theory, the relationship between the people organized in a political state and their government relies on each side's rights and responsibilities. So the people give the government its power, and in return, the government gives the people defense and protects the people's natural rights while managing the government. The people have a responsibility to follow the laws that the government created and intended to manage the nation and protect the nation. If the people don't follow the laws, the government will restrict their individual rights. If the government at some point starts to abuse their power given by the people, then the people have the right to overthrow or replace that government. The social contract arrangement is the basis for colonial independence. The colonists believe that King George III's government had violated their social contract and abused its power with the implementation of unfair taxes, attacks by British forces against colonists, and the restrictions placed on local colonial assemblies. Therefore, the colonists believed that they were exercising their right to replace and overthrow the government that had abused its power it had been given. Locke's key ideas of natural rights form the foundation of the social contract theory. He believed that all people possess natural rights that are unconditional, such as life, liberty, and property. A discussion of these rights and their protection is highlighted in the Declaration of Independence's preamble. The Declaration of Independence is organized into three key sections. The first section, the preamble, calls the attention of the world to the plight of the American colonists. In this section, Jefferson laid out the main ideological reasons why the American colonies had chosen to and had a right to break away from the British government. Key ideas included in the preamble are natural rights, the origins and purposes of government as laid out in the social contract theory, and the reasons why the colonists had decided to rebel against the king and parliament. The second section of the Declaration of Independence is a list of grievances or justifications, depending on how you want to look at it. This section contains 27 separate points of difference the colonists had with King George III and his government. The grievances provide evidence of the social contract violations that the government made in its role with the people. The final section of the document offers a discussion on the many unsuccessful previous attempts made by Americans to get relief from Britain. An example of a previous attempt at peace listed in this section of the Declaration of Independence is seen in the Olive Branch Petition. This was a plea directly to King George III made by the colonists' Second Continental Congress in 1775, trying to negotiate to avoid armed conflict, which the king ignored. So they're all like, hey, you remember that time when we didn't want to fight and we were trying not to fight, and then you're all just like, well, now that decision is really coming back to bite you, King George. The section ends with the colonists' determination that the only way for Americans to have their rights restored is to reclaim them by declaring independence from Britain and by controlling their own government. The final signed document was printed for wide distribution throughout the 13 new and independent states now united in war against Britain. That wraps up the look at Standard 4, Part A, focusing on the intellectual sources, organization, and argument of the Declaration of Independence, including the role of Thomas Jefferson and the Committee of Five.